G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now last time I put the frames in, the custom ones, and I raised the sill so I could get a much more Stingray look to this thing. I've since filled, puttied in, sanded that up, and just a top tip there when you're sanding those little frames is put the tape that I used as a trick to hold them in place while I glued them, either leave that in or put it back because it makes it a lot easier when you're rubbing and sanding. You don't knock those little fellas out. Because this side was a little harder to do. I didn't have any tape in there. I kept knocking them out and to glue them back in. But anyhow, that was all done. So what we need to do now is, that's all well and good, but I want to see something through those windows. So that means I need to scratch an interior. So do you want to see that? Great, roll the music. So we should see a fair amount of this through our windows. So probably be about that sort of masking. So we'll see quite a lot in. Now you'll notice this is a photo from the show. The guys that built the interior sets for this show, this marionette show, they did all their window frames pretty well vertically. And they've got great big curves on the ends. They've got all this sort of stuff that is so different to the outside. All the outside models look completely different, but I went for those slanted ones and the slightly more subtle curve because that is the look of all the big models and I think it's the nicest look. So yeah, so you could just leave them all vertical if you wanted to and it actually matches the interior, but I don't think it looks as good outside. And let's face it, 90% of this model is going to be outside. But here's what the interior is like. So we've got to figure out what we'll see and what we won't see. So, through those windows, what things are we going to see? We're going to see a lot from the front. So obviously this whole front area needs to be there and we need to have an indication of the back. You'll notice also they've got green blinds all the way through. Whenever they do an interior shot, there's green blinds. So that's a bit of a pest. So there you go. Look, you can see here the top of the model and you can see how imperfect it is. Well, this is the interior. You'll also see there's a rod here, and that does appear on the outside for the models of the exterior. So I'll need to do that, but I can do that last. So it's only just a thin, tiny, probably 0.5mm piece of brass we'll put in there. But that's well worth remembering. That is there. It's both on the interior and the exterior shots in the TV series. All right, so how do we go about doing this interior? Well, there's various ways, but this is what I'm going to do. The whole interior actually fits in this because this is a piece that actually fits in there and that gives you windows. I mean, once I've taken my tape out, it's going to fit a lot better and it sits pretty well level with this edge here. So that's handy when you're measuring things because that line there is essentially roughly that line there, calculating things, and you've got this much height to work with, although you're not going to see a lot of it because you're going to lose a fair bit here with like this wainscot, right? And then you're going to lose quite a bit here with the top ledge along the ceiling or edge there. So you've got to remember you're only going to get about 7 or 8mm here. That's all you get. So that whole thing is about 18mm, and of that you're going to lose 10. You're only going to get down to 8mm at the most. I think it's more like 7.5. But we'll be generous, we'll call it 8. Okay, so we're only going to see that much. That's all the window we've got. As I said, at the front it is panoramic, so it does give you quite a big long look in. The side we're not going to see as much, so that's something to remember when you're designing your interior. There's no point going absolutely crazy with things that can only be seen from the side because the windows are going to be quite small and the view in is quite narrow. But anything from the front we will see in much more detail. We'll really be able to see in and see what's going on. So that's the thing to consider. Okay, what I've done here is I have just traced around this, right? And I've got my base. And then I've measured where the pillars are so I know what are going to be the angles of looking in. So that means I need to make sure that not much point putting something really complicated behind that pillar, it will never get seen. And also seeing how far I can look back. Now to get those measurements, because it's a curve, it's really hard to measure out unless you had a round tape measure, but I've just done a simple trick. I've assumed this crease here is exactly the same, roughly, as that. That's the same line, okay, because that was the bottom, and I'd established that sat at the bottom of there. So this curved line is this curved line. Then I've taken a measurement from the centre here out to a pillar, and then I've gone, that should be the centre there, out to that pillar, okay? Straight line, can't go wrong. Same there to there, okay? Same there to there. So then I don't have to worry about curves, because I'm basically just working in straight lines. It's very easy. So again, from the centre there to there, and then to get where my back window ends. And I don't even have to look at the numbers. I'm just looking at the caliper here. Okay, so that is how I calculated out where things were. So that now gives me, that's where that centre rod's going to go. It doesn't really obscure much, but I've got all that there is exposed. Window frame there, window frame there, window frame there, and the final window curves around there. Now, before I even start drawing on here, it's probably best to do a rough one below it. So that's what I'll do now. I'm going to compare the photos that I found here, and I'll give you the link to this. These photos, I have lots of them. Photos from all kinds of angles, so that I could sort of have a good look in here. And I don't own these, but they are on a website that is basically reviewing the show. So I'll give you a link to that, and they review all the episodes, and they take stills from the episodes. So I'm just using these photos as a reference for my build. Okay, and therefore fair use. So there you go. Slanted windows on the outside, go inside, vertical windows. And a photo like this is really invaluable because it shows the depth and shows me how far back things go. So from that I can work out how far I need to go back from that window, and we are cut off. I've got to put a panel in. So okay, let me analyse the photos, and then I'll come up with what I think are the most important elements that will be useful for a scratch interior. Okay, so how do I work out the position of things? Like I've got a rough drawing here, and why do I do it rough? Well, I'll tell you, the scale is all wrong. I've roughly put things where they are, at least try to position them to the windows. I've found that there's basically a rail here that differentiates the green carpet at the back. That starts that window. Those two windows are used for things, for panels, okay, and also the railings that go around the hole that drops down. So you can easily define how far along in this direction things are. So I've got those worked out. But widths, that's a bit tricky. But all you've got to do is find a photo like this where you're looking back and all the widths are level horizontal lines. Now, you can't measure distances and perspectives because obviously the foreground is different. The background lengths are compressed because that's where perspective lines go. You can't say, oh, that's 19 long and therefore that's 19 long there. It doesn't work that way. Okay, perspective diminishes as it goes away. There is a way to calculate that, but let's not even get into that. What is easy always is horizontal lines. Horizontal lines, at least for something small, are relative. So therefore, if I know that and I look over here, that will be relative and that'll be relative. So I can have a look at this and I can go, well, that's a third, that's a third, that's a third, and that will be correct. Whatever size my thing is, I know I can split into thirds. And I found that with the back door here. The back door here is about that wide, and to the floor that is that width, that width. So I know my back door is going to be 1/3. So I don't need to know an exact size at this point because I haven't worried to work that out. But I know that if I know where this is, then I know that that's 1/3. So that makes that easy. And how do I figure out where that is? Well, again, I can kind of look. It's got a bit of perspective, but at a rough guess, I'd say that section there is, again, 1/3 of the distance of that window. So if that's the case, and it's a real guess, but it will look aesthetically correct. So if my window here is, say, 18, let's call it 18, it's easy to calculate, 18, well, 1/3, 18, 6. So I would know 6 back here, that is where my back wall is. Easy as that. So you can start calculating things, you start working things out. Now I've already calculated a few because I've worked out from basically drawings like, there were photos like this and the photo back here, this one, which was great. I have a beautiful reference here because I have the distance between two pillars. Okay, so if I know that's roughly 100, okay, now those pillars divide up very evenly. There's these distances here. Okay, they're the same all the way through, and they are locked to the edge of that hole. So that's something that I can figure out. So once I know that, I can then go, okay, look, the distances between the pillars is exactly the same as the distance between the seats. Oh, remember that. That'll be useful for positioning the seats. Okay, so what you do is you just find things to reference to that you can lock onto in the photos, and that'll give you some of it. Now, for those of you that don't know, the front, there's two seats. Okay, there they are. They're two seats. They're sitting in front of a rail. Okay, there's the rail. And behind them, there's a drop into a lower level, which is a stupid use of space in a submarine. But anyhow, that's how they did it. So that goes into there. There's that shot that's really good of it. You can see the rails, right? Now here you can also calculate out how big is this hole. And that was fairly easy to do. I measured the distance here. I could draw that line down, so that will be the wall, okay? This is a technical drawing thing. You take a point and you go down vertically. Vertical lines are not in perspective. Horizontal lines, generally, if they are absolutely horizontal, are not in perspective. You can use them. So you go down vertically from there. Okay, that hits a point. Well, actually, you'd be hitting a point back there. So you'd need a horizontal line that way. So back there, okay, and you could work out an imaginary point hidden behind there, and you'd know the width. From that, you can start measuring things. So from there to where the bars start, and from here, and you can start calculating things out. Look, you can just eyeball it if you like. It works out, because I measured them, and I ended up with this 3, 10, 4, 3 ratio. So it was 3 at the end here. These panel was 3, the walkway was 4, and the hole was 10. Okay, so I just got some measurements, and I worked that out from photos. But there's other photos that were better, I think they were a bit wider, that I managed to do some real calculations from that really helped me out. So you just sort of have to look through. I mean, this one here is terrific. You can work out a lot from that because there's not so much in the way. So you can see that width of carpet. You can basically work out the width here of the controls and the hole. So what it works out is when you add up 3, 10, 4 and 3, come to 20. Aha, that's a nice number. 5 20s are 100. So we can work in percentages, okay? If you're not following the math, don't worry. So what I worked out is the panels on either side take up 15% of the width, whatever the width is. The hole in the middle takes up 50%, half of the width, okay? And the walkway is 20%. So that gives me some figures to work out. Even if all I got out of that is the hole is half, but it's slightly offset. And the side bits are only like 15%, so I could roughly work them out. This will at least give me, as close to as possible, the ratios of things so it'll look realistic. And as I said, I can see the green carpet, it goes to there. That is then level with that first window pillar. But if I look further on, well, there's a nice one showing the back door. I could figure out the door width again there. Right, so again, that was a nice one. I could go door width is that. Oh, look at that. And look at that. It's 1/3, okay, roughly. But pillars, I need things to be sort of square on so I can figure things out. So you see, that's not a bad one for some things. See, there's a good one. Again, they're looking straight down, so I can have a look at things and see what the ratios are. And I can see there's only one pillar, one pillar, one pillar at the back, one pillar, one pillar, one pillar. Also tells me if I want to locate where Troy's chair is, it's right of that pillar. Okay. And then if I know the distance between the two of the steering wheels, so I've worked it out, and it happens to be the same width as between two of those pillars, then I can measure that as well. It's all about finding things on there and working in like percentages, and then you'll position everything. So I think I've got enough now. I've kind of worked them all out. I can now transfer this to my actual drawing rather than sketch, and I will use the measurements to correctly place everything. Well, there we go. I've transferred the basic dimensions across so I can get a rough idea what's going on here. That's where it's going to end, so you won't see any further back from that. That's where I'm going to need to put that wall, the door. This is the green carpet area. Then these are the sides here which have got panels. And that's a little walkway through. This is the seating area. This is where I'm going to need to put the steering wheels and the controls. So I've got that. Now, the holes here, that's what came with the kit, and that was for all the silliness of there was a light that popped up through there, and then here we had the little doobit that went back and forth. I'm not using any of that, that's just toy stuff. Now luckily, when I measured this up, because remember this was half the actual full width here of the inside, so, and this was 15% and this was 20%, it just so happened that it comes just to that side of that cutout, and it was actually about 1 millimetre in this way, so I've taken a bit of artistic liberty and pushed it out so it's easy to cut. So now I can cut out that panel there which drops down to the pit below. Yes, I don't know why they've got a pit, but they've got a pit. Yes. So I've got the little light on my phone here. We're showing that up in there. Gives us a clear idea what we'll see. That's kind of about the amount of light that might be in there. I'm going to put a little LED in there. So yeah, probably absolutely impossible for you to see riveting stuff, Harry. No one can really see it. I can now clearly see what can be seen and what can't be seen. So that is interesting. All right, that's the thing. I need to establish at all times what's worth doing. I think it's worth cutting out that pit. The other thing I've got to do is get rid of this stupid little protrusion here in the canopy. Right, or basically the cabin windows, because that's all part of that mechanism. If you were, flicking it so that the dive planes went down and the thing went beep, we're not doing any of that. No. So I'm going to remove that. That's getting in the way, and cut that out, and then we can basically paint this up, and we've got the base done, and then we can add all the bits and pieces. A little bit of clean up, not much. Came out pretty clean actually. Came out nice and straight. It's not bad at all. I did slip on one edge, cut a little bit too far when I was doing the guiding lines, but that is, for all intents and purposes, what I need. And because there's equipment sitting over here and here, you'll never see my little faux parts. At least I haven't cut into this area there. That's very important. And there's a little aluminium strip there and an aluminium strip there that goes across. So that will be fine for my purposes. And that gives me that space for the pit. So that is good. So that will go in there and then into here. Actually gives a feeling. Yeah, there's definitely a pit in there. You can see it. So that will be good. So when we light it up, there will be a sense of depth in there. I will have to, of course, create a little box for that pit inside, but that's just a little bit of card. I still don't know how they get up and down into there. It's not sort of evident. So I am well on my way now to getting the preparation done for the base of our scratch interior. Now I really want to get rid of that horrible little sort of push down piece there in the clear part, and it's only for that stupid little lever which I'm not using now. I thought of just cutting it with a knife, but that was going to be too sort of dangerous. I might have broken everything. So I've decided to get in there with the drill bit and cut a series of holes all the way around it. That should solve that problem. There we go. There's all my holes. Now this is the point where this hopefully works. See, if I'd used the cutters to cut that out, I was worried it would split and crack all the way down. So by doing this very carefully, I haven't created any other damage. I mean, this is going to need a good polish up. It was pretty grubby when I first got it, but we should be able to do this now very carefully. You can join the little holes up because there's not much plastic between them. Alright, I think I'm nearly there. Yep, click, and there we go. I have not damaged the sides. Don't worry about that, it's a bit sticky, that's at the back, never gets seen. So that has come out very cleanly. Now we can see our pit, there it is. And that is where our controls are going to be, and our seats are going to be in front of that hole for the pit, and we've got enough of a wainscot there for all those machines, which I won't do too much detail to, those little sort of radar machines, computers and everything, so you really won't be able to see them. But we are going to be able to see down inside, so that is what this whole exercise is about. Okay, let's get on with it. So I've got this shape ready and it's cut out, and I've marked in where that back wall is, so really I'm only going to do detail from there to there. I'm going to keep it sparingly. The little control boxes just going to be plain boxes. I'm not going to worry about detailing them, you'll never see it. The seats, yeah, I will do them. I will do the steering wheels, all that sort of stuff. Certainly put the green carpet in and this little back door. So this little back door area, well, it is, well, what height is it? What shape is it? There's a bit of a clue here. Because this canopy thing sort of fits over, that is going to be the profile of inside of there. Okay, so I can know from this that it sits there. So I can make a little mark there on my canopy. So how do I get that inside shape? Well, you use something like this. This is a profile tool. Okay. Lots of little rods, they move up and down inside this. So, you know, if I wanted to know the profile of my, okay, that's the profile of my little, what are these things called? Friskers, frisky pen, frisky knife, yeah, little frisky knife here. I think the Moose sent this to me, thanks Moose. So, now I know where that should be. I can use my little profile former, push it up in there. I had another go off camera and I got a much better shape. You've really got to make sure that you are perpendicular and level and you push in. So that is a nice shape. So just a bit of stock plastic, scratch, and if I rest that up against there, so the good thing it's got a little metal rule there you can rest against, and then it's very carefully, without wrecking the profile tool, you don't want to push any of those guys out the way. There is my shape. So I'll tidy that up, cut it out and see how it fits. So after a bit of sanding and shaping, it was fairly close, and I've just put a little bit of tape on there. Let's see how we go. So pop that on there. And there you go. Perfect little profile. Not that you can really see it much, but it will be fine for what we are trying to achieve here. So the trick is to make sure it's not going to push this canopy up any higher. And it shouldn't be. Because we don't want to get into the painting and everything and then try to put this on. But no, that sits fine. That'll sit there. That will at least give the look of the end of the cabin. So that's good. That's that problem solved. Okay, so we will need to make some doors for that. So I'll get on and I'll do that. They'll be easy. Remember, they're 1/3 the width. We need to know heights. So let's work out some heights. So again, referencing the photos that I have, right, this one shows me the door height is just underneath the window height. So I measured inside the cockpit, right, from the model, and I had 3mm was the height from the top sill of the window to the roof. Okay, so I'll need to go about probably 4. So I'll measure down 4mm, all right. And again, I am guessing, yes, you are absolutely correct, but it'll be roughly that. So it's got to be lower than 3, and of course you've got the width of the plastic as well taken account. We'll go 4. And that kind of looks about right for the pictures I've seen. I also need to go 1/3 the width of that. So what's that cut down to now? Okay, 22. Well, 3 7s, 21. We'll do it that way. 7's a much easier number to work with. Okay, so we'll go 7, and on this side 7. We'll call that our door. Easy as that. And I've got this sort of taped to the cutting board so that I can measure things off and make sure I'm square by aligning to all these all the squares. You're square because you're aligned to the square. See, get it? Okay. Yes, easy as that. That's assuming I've got this square, of course. So that's where my door is going to go. So it's going to be just over 7mm wide. Remember, 1/3. 3 7's 21. Yeah, it's 22 wide. A little bit for inaccuracy. Height then, I can measure that. And that's 9. All right. So what I can do is on a very thin piece of, if I want relief, honestly you could just paint it on, no one would know. But I'm going to make a little one that's just a little, stick out a little bit, just for an exercise. So I'll make something that is 7 and a bit wide and 9 tall, and I'll round the corners on it, and that will be my door. Now to work out the rest of the things on here, there's a bookcase, there's like a viewing screen and some sort of, looks like a communication system, and there's a whole lot of buttons there. Well, we can extrapolate all of that out. Now I've basically just made up a tiny little sketch here, and then working again using measurements off the screen, working out percentages. I kind of just worked it all out and roughly position everything where it should be. And I've got some things I do know. I knew that width was 22, I knew my door height was 9, and that spacer was 4. So working with the few things that I knew, I could work out the rest. So I went ahead and made those 3 little pieces and the little bookcase on the side there, and here I'm just fitting them in. And I also made that little control panel, put a little ledge on it so it sticks out a bit. These are going to be so small they'll hardly be seen, but it's something to fill the back of that ship. I wonder if you want to actually see me making each part in future videos, because I'm not going to get them all done in this video. If you do, let me know. If you say, no Harry, we sort of grasped it now, that's fine, just show us the finished result and paint the bloody thing, I'll do that. So let me know. If it's boring seeing me cut out every tiny little bit, sure. But if you'd like to know, let me know. Maybe you do want to know how to make up all the control panels. It might be interesting to learn how to make the seats and at least the steering columns. That might be of interest to you. Let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll concentrate more of that in the next video. That's a lot for this video, and there's a lot more that I want to do. So rather than you having a great hour-long video that'll take me another week to make, I'll give you this now, and we'll move on to part B of this, which will be in the next episode of the Stingray build. So I hope you're enjoying that. And as usual, like if you like what I'm doing. If you don't like what I'm doing, look, I'm glad you made it to the end of the video. Just, you can comment, but just say something constructive, something nice. And if you are liking, you're one of those likers, then you can join the channel, or you can basically subscribe to the channel. You can also join YouTube and Patreon, all those sort of things. You can even hit the super thanks button. Give me some money. Say, make better videos. Here's a couple of dollars. That would be great. All right. Well, that's enough for now. It's goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry and Denny.